First of all, let's put out a few facts about what we know about the explosion, which could point to who might have carried it out. Uh, 600 meters of a 2 kilometer wide dam collapsed. That's a very, very large section. And I've talked to a lot of folks in the last 24 hours, experts in munitions, experts in engineering, and shelling would not have caused that large a collapse. Indeed, bombing, aerial bombing, probably wouldn't have caused it because it would require hundreds of pounds of explosives. So the most likely cause at this point of the collapse are explosives that were placed on the dam. And there's only one party that's in a position to do that. And that is, of course, the Russians. Now, why would the Russians want to destroy this dam, causing the destruction, threatening civilians, threatening environmental damage for decades? It's quite simply because Ukraine is in the preparatory steps of a counteroffensive that would not only be in eastern Ukraine, where they have advanced earlier this week, but in southern Ukraine. And to hold up a Ukrainian offensive, to hold up their movement of armored vehicles, for example, you flood the area. You let the Dnipro River overrun its banks, which is precisely what has happened in the last 24 hours.
And if that analysis is correct, that this was a deliberate act by Russia, I wonder if you think it actually might backfire, given that we're seeing these reports that Russia too has to evacuate civilians, it too has to evacuate its soldiers, and this could impact the water supply in Crimea, which of course Russia controls.
Well, I'm not sure those calculations came into play. And I'll explain, first of all, that we've got videos which are coming in from the right, the left, eastern bank of the river, which is the Russian occupied bank. And there are no rescue efforts in areas like Aletsky or even in Nova Kakhovka. There are people who are stranded in their houses. So it doesn't appear that the Russians had planned for an evacuation or are implementing it very quickly. Troops are scrambling from the front lines to get to higher ground. What I think happened, and I must emphasize I cannot prove this, don't have conclusive evidence yet, is that if Russia did demolish this dam, it was done pretty quickly. It was done on orders which came either from the Kremlin or for senior military commanders who quite simply are at the point of almost panicking in terms of being desperate in the face of what is going to be this Ukrainian counteroffensive and feeling that they are in a very, very poor position to defend themselves on the battleground.
A bit earlier this afternoon, I spoke to an advisor to the defense ministry in Ukraine, and he was adamant that this wouldn't impact the Ukrainian counteroffensive at all. It wouldn't delay that planned assault. Do you think that that's true?
It depends on how they're going to carry out the assault. I mean, it is not possible now to move heavy armored vehicles, large military vehicles across that portion of the Dnipro that is flooded in the Kherson region. You can move lighter vehicles across, but that might not be enough for a counteroffensive. If you're going to move heavy vehicles across, you need to go upstream, higher up the Dnipro River, up near the city of Dnipro itself. Now, the Ukrainians may have planned for that, or alternative, let's remember that the Ukrainians may be planning to launch the initial wave of their counteroffensive not in the south, but in the east of Ukraine, which of course is distant from the flooding that we're talking about.
And just finally, I wonder if you think that there are risks now to the Zaporizhia nuclear plant, given that the dam that has now collapsed provides cooling water to that site.
Well, the Ukrainian Nuclear Authority and the International Atomic Energy Agency say there is no imminent threat to the cooling pond at the nuclear plant. The water in that cooling pond is still at 16.6 meters, which is its normal level. Now there will be evaporation from that pond, which normally would be refilled with water from the reservoir from the Nova Kakhovka Dam. But the IEA has said that that water can be provided from alternative sources, such as underground sources. So at this point, while we're looking at all the many levels of disaster that we have here, an immediate crisis at the nuclear plant is not one of them.
Professor Scott Lucas.